Hey, I'm James from Slipstream Creations. This is a 1971 Honda CL350 Scrambler. Our vision for this bike was to take a vintage Scrambler and keep that retro vibe, but make it a little bit more dirt-worthy for exploring some Ozark backcountry. Now, this customer did not have a donor bike for us to start this project with, but we were lucky enough to source this from Brickhouse Builds here in St. Louis. He had just gotten done doing some service on the bike, so we knew it was a great running bike and a good starting point for this project. There are a whole lot of differences between this bike and a stock CL350, but probably the biggest one is the custom subframe here. Now, from the factory, these CL350s came with a stamped steel frame, or the subframe at least was stamped steel. And most of that was covered up with a great big seat and side covers, so you couldn't really see it. For us to really clean these lines up and give this bike the look that we wanted, we built a custom subframe and seat hoop out of 1-inch steel tubing here. That also gave us the ability to play with the level and the height of the subframe, and also to make some custom upper shock mounts here for the rear. We've got some Hagon shocks here mounted that give us a little bit extra travel and better performance than the stock shocks. One of the other big changes that we made was to upgrade to a 1976 CB500T front fork. Now, this is just a little bit taller fork, so we get a little bit more ground clearance. And it's also got 35mm fork tubes, which are a little bit bigger and stiffer than the 33mm tubes that come with the CL350 stock. The other really nice thing about this fork from the CB500 was that it gave us a hydraulic front disc brake versus the drum brake that comes with the bike stock. So we got a new master cylinder here, stainless steel braided brake line, and better stopping power than the stock bike for sure. One of the other things that the CB500T had stock was a 19-inch front wheel, which meant we'd have a little bit better choices in terms of knobby and dual sport tires as well. We ended up using these Kenda Trackmaster tires, which are a really great DOT-approved knobby tire. They're a 90% dirt, 10% street tire, and they worked out great for this bike. We also rebuilt the wheels, so the hubs got powder coated, fresh new bearings, and then we laced up aluminum rims with some fresh spokes as well. We used the original tank here, but we did make a few modifications. When you look at a stock CL350, the tank always looks like it's really sloped towards the back. And to me, at least, it always made the bike feel like it was really squatting in the rear really badly. So we managed to keep the front tank mounts, but we modified the rear tank mounts to bring it up a little bit and give it this nice sort of level look to it. Now, what's nice about that is we have a really nice sort of level belt line that carries from the front of the tank through the new subframe here from front to back of the bike. This paint design is our own variation on the stock design. Now, this tank from the factory came with it was a blue tank, and it had black graphics on here that looked very much like this, but we did modify the graphics a little. We brought the top edge of the graphic here, just up here so that it follows this shoulder line on the tank to make it flow a little bit better with the overall shape. We used a little bit lighter, less saturated blue color, and then obviously we reversed out the black graphics with white. These white panels contrast a little bit better, and they also pull in the white from the fenders as well to give it kind of a nice cohesive look to it. Now, these fenders came from a 70s Honda SL350, which was back in the day a little bit closer to a dual sport than the CL was, and it had this nice high mount front fender. So we've got the high mount fender here mounted up, which is cool. It gives it a little bit more of a retro dirt bike kind of vibe. And then in the back here, we made a custom steel rear inner fender here to keep any dirt and debris off of the engine and the air filters and the carburetors. And we mounted the SL back here in the rear. We actually were able to modify it to mount a little LED taillight, brake light here on the back as well. We did upgrade all of the lighting on this bike. Up in the front here, we have an aftermarket 6.5-inch headlight bucket here. We've got an LED unit in here, and we have this mounted up with some custom fabricated headlight brackets that we made that work really nicely with this triple clamp setup. For turn signals, we're using these Moto Gadget pin-style LED turn signals. Now, on the front, we've got them mounted right here into the headlight, and then on the rear here, we actually have some little threaded bosses we welded into the subframe. which give it a really clean, uncluttered look. You barely even know that the turn signals are there unless they're on. The lighting is all powered by an updated electrical system. We've got a lithium battery stashed under the seat here. We made a custom steel battery and electronics tray that we made under the seat. We also updated to a modern regulator rectifier, updated all of the wiring and all the ignition components as well. This was a good running engine, so we didn't do a full rebuild on this. Now, we did clean it and tune it. The engine got painted in a 2K epoxy black, and then all of the covers got media blasted and powder coated in a satin wrinkle black, which looks really great. We resealed everything, put new gaskets on it, new seals, and then reassembled everything with all stainless steel hardware. This is the original CL350 Scrambler exhaust, and it was in pretty decent shape, but we had to make a few modifications to make it work for us. So normally these pipes run out parallel here. We had to do a little bit of tweaking here, especially at the end. We needed to flare them away from each other to fit these stainless steel cone mufflers on it. One of the other things that we really wanted to make sure would work is we knew that we would be putting this custom pannier rack on here, and we didn't want any interference with the exhaust and the panniers themselves. This customer wanted a rack that would make it easy to mount up some soft panniers or even to strap a milk crate to the back of the rack here when he wanted to go for a ride. But also wanted it to be easy to remove and reinstall if he wanted to take it off. So we built this rack out of steel and powder coated it in that texture black, the same texture black we're using on the cases on the engine. And then we also, in order to make this easy to manage, we welded in some threaded bosses right in here to the subframe when we built it. So we've got 2 threaded bosses on either side of the subframe, 2 little bosses in the back, and then a couple of brackets down here on these down tubes. So this is a nice sturdy rack, worked out really well. One of the other things we did is we added this little exhaust deflector here on the side here. Rather than making this rack sort of hang out a couple of inches off the side here and routing the exhaust all the way up under it, we just terminated the exhaust here and put a little shield just to prevent any soot and heat and gas from getting on the panniers on the side. And to round out all of the dual sport updates that we made, we added a skid plate here to the front that's mounted to the frame. So we handmade this skid plate out of 1/8" aluminum plate just to keep any debris and rocks from breaking that engine case open. For the seat here, we kept the subframe long enough that you could still ride this bike 2 up, and we kept the passenger foot pegs as well. So we fabricated a steel seat pan here and shaped the foam to really flow with the lines of the bike. And it's a little bit narrower seat as well, so reaching the ground is a little bit easier. We've got the front of it shaped to fit right up here in the tunnel of the tank, how we have it positioned, so it's nice and tidy. We covered it with a marine grade vinyl and upholstered it with just a plastic pleated cover here as well. To finish everything up, we swapped out the stock chrome handlebars for these wide vintage dirt bike style bars, put some fresh grips on it. We also swapped out the gauges for this mini speedometer with built-in LED indicator lights. There are a million other little details on this bike, and we really love how it turned out. This bike is a ton of fun to ride, and it's still a charming and approachable Honda 350, but we dialed up the form and function just enough to make this thing really feel at home when you get to the end of the pavement. Let us know in the comments what you think of this build, if you'd have done anything differently. And if you liked this, be sure to like the video and subscribe for more.